What's up, guys, and welcome back. Happy Thursday. I'm here to interrupt your love fest with high evolutionary or hatred with a new OTA card balance update that includes the deletion of 3 locations as well as 2 buffs and 2 nerfs and a brand new OTA weekly schedule. Now, let's go to kick off with the meta shakeup as far as the buffs and nerfs go, and we start with Black Bolt and Stature, whose day in the sun is officially over after what was an insanely dominant season for Marvel Snap and the duo. Now, the devs state in their post that the Good Stats deck has yet to be contested for quite some time now, sporting the same numbers as both Thanos and Shuri in their prime, which in one vein I find funny because I don't see the tweets and the hatred for these cards as much, but that's also because they're kind of jumping on them before that, maybe? Now, personally, in my opinion, I'm hoping the changes mainly to Black Bolt is more on the temporary side, as this was about his time as a playable card in Marvel Snap. Now, when it comes to Stature, I still think she's a pretty good card as long as discard is in a firm place in the meta, which at the moment it's definitely near the top. And, she'll have a decent role against those decks, but this has definitely knocked her down a peg. Now, after a quick Google search, you can see that it's clearly the best deck by a pretty wide margin, and the devs have access to way more data than I do, and they said that they're seeing the exact same thing. And they did test this with some future builds and cards that are releasing, and they said they saw the same result, right? Which I think is why Wave got nerfed, or going back to like Quinjet and Hitmonkey coming out. So I do trust them there completely. My biggest issue is the token shop, right? When it comes to like a great deck being dominant for about a month, if you're saving up your tokens for that card, my advice to you is if it's not a card that has synergy with a wide variety of cards, I would probably hold back from buying it unless some other deck rises up to compete with it, because then, it's probably going to be the same result here. It'll be tuned up in an OTA patch. And in the case of like Stature and Black Bolt, it's a lot harder to fit these cards into other decks, opposed to like Zabu, who is going to work with so many different cards, even post-nerf, and like Iron Lad, High Evolutionary. Those are the safer cards to buy. Being candid, guys, I fully agree that these cards need to be nerfed. I mean, if they're at the top of the meta for far too long and nothing can rise up, like, I totally get it. But my problem is, it shouldn't feel so unsafe to get these. Like, I get they don't have a refund. The collector doesn't do refunds, but maybe like flip 1,000 tokens like, hey, sorry, the card you just bought got nerfed kind of thing. I think that's like a decent middle ground, but I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts? Next up, let's talk about Negasonic, a card that you probably forgot existed. They'll be taking her from a 3-4 to a 3-5, which really doesn't do a lot, right? Because the purpose of Negasonic is every time you play her, that's the whole purpose of why she exists. But if I'm being honest, I kind of think she's underrated. I play her a fair amount. She's typically the worst card in the deck, and I'm probably not doing a good job selling her, but she's actually really good with Daredevil when you play her. One of the best cards to blow something up on turn 5. And with Professor X, when you play her down on 3 or 4, playing him on top of it feels really safe and dependable. So I do like her for those niche uses. Definitely not worth the tokens. If she drops down, definitely try her out. If you like Control, she does have a purpose, but there's just other cards out there. And they said they experimented of maybe putting her down to 2 cost, which, I like the idea, but apparently it was just too good against 6 cost cards. So I don't see this changing much in Negasonic's play. If you were playing her, you're probably still going to play her. If you weren't, then you're not. But try her out with, Nimrod, Deadpool. Destroy decks do okay with the card as well. And Null is a cheeky option. Destroy a good card, and then, have Null continue to get that power. Now, guys, there's some cards in Marvel Snap that, like, their pure purpose is to, like, do combos for other cards. And typically, those cards get cut. An Invisible Woman felt like one of those cards. Now, again, I do think she's underplayed at the moment. This is probably the most exciting change from today. She'll be going from a 2-2 to a 2-3. Now, they believe that she has more potential than just being like this kind of Cosmo shield or like taking the bullet from Enchantress. If I'm being honest, it's still going to do about the same for her. Like, I'd be curious if she was a 1 cost. Like, a 1-2 would make sense with her ability. I think that would be just fine. And a quick moment of silence for Cerebro 2, outside of just High Evolutionary. Now they've lost Invisible Woman. That's like back-to-back blows in the same week. Tough stuff. But Cerebro 2 has a lot of other options. But personally, I kind of hate it because I used all the time Mr. Sinister and Brood. It was like this nice cheeky way of all of a sudden revealing a ton of power. And so I imagine some diehard Cerebro 2 fans, all 100 of them, are going to be pretty pissed about this. But Cerebro 3 fans, you have a new toy to mess with and see how she works within those decks. I don't know. Maybe this will have some newfound love from Invisible Woman. She has some great combos. If you haven't seen, these are personally my favorite right here. All right, so if you've been tuning out for like the majority of these changes, you want to listen up to this one. This is wild. they are deleting locations from Marvel Snap. Now, last time we had an OTA, they kind of reduced the frequency of some locations in the game, the not so fun ones. But now it appears that 3 of them are just, they're done. They're kaput. They're going to go ahead and redo them. So as of now, Plunder Castle, Milano, which had a whole 15 seconds in the game, and Sandbar will no longer be locations in the game, instead of further reducing their frequency. They're going to be taking them back to the design team, and they're going to find out brand new effects to implement them, not to be more negative or harsh or, similar to the ones we have, and reintroduce them to the game. Now, I gotta say, it feels like a step in the right direction, rather than like reducing even more frequencies of these locations, like just getting rid of them and making them new and more exciting for, playing a card game, rather than you can't play cards here. Now, personally, I thought Milano was kind of fun. Sandbar, Plunder Castle, hated those. But overall, this will continue to hurt cards, not hurt them, but like Jeff and these cards that could work around it, like Dr. Doom. Still reduce their overall efficiency a little bit more. They're still really good cards, but you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see what they do with these locations, and they said they return in the next few months. Now, lastly, guys, we in on a change to these weekly card balance updates. Now, I want to know from you guys truly down below, like what you thought of these in their test trial in May. One hand, loved it. Marvel Snap always felt fresh. There always felt something new in the game. On weeks like this one where there wasn't a lot of changes, I was ready for the next one. But then there was those weeks where a lot changed. Enchantress was a 4/6. And before I could like mentally process that, something else was coming the next week. So we have a new schedule, and I think this is a healthy balance. But again, I want to hear from you guys what you thought of the weekly changes. So essentially, they're going to have a patch week, which happens typically at Tuesday, 8 a.m. PST. Then we have an OTA week, which typically happens on Thursday around 11-ish a.m. PST. Then there'll be an off week, one more OTA, then back to the patch, then OTA. So essentially, guys, it's like one less OTA. And I have to say, I've loved these. These have been awesome. It's been really cool keeping the game fresh, especially compared to like the earlier year where like nothing changed for months on end. So hats off to the team for busting their butt. Apparently, it was really hard to keep up with the demand. And hopefully this allows them to kind of put their assets towards other things in Marvel Snap. Now, before we end, guys, I just want to say a huge thank you. I'm at 90,000 subs officially now, and we're closing in on 100,000, which has been like a dream of mine for a very long time. Ever since I started content creation, I get a neat little play button back there. This is crazy. This is all crazy. So just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you guys for supporting me, my journey, as we go for 100,000 subs by the end of June. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. We're going to be doing some high evolution content for the next couple of days. There's a lot to cover there. And as always, until the next one, happy snapping.